We'll now cover a bit of the code-related information and some installation information. If somebody has an existing exterior 120-volt outlet, they can utilize that for level 1 charging. There's no extra permitting requirements because that outlet already exists. If you need to install a new outlet, a permit would be required. Likewise, when installing a new circuit for level 2 charging, whether that's a home or a business, a permit will be needed, and level 3, of course, requires a permit. As far as actual code language, the National Electric Code has Article 625, which covers terminology and important installation details like a charger being on a dedicated branch circuit and making sure that an EV can't unintentionally backfeed onto the grid. The 2024 International Residential Code doesn't require pre-wiring for EV charging, but it does have model language in there that a jurisdiction may adopt to require that in their specific jurisdiction. In 2020, Virginia passed a right to charge law to make it easier to install EV chargers where there is an HOA or a condo board. These associations can't prevent a property owner from installing a charger on their own property under this law, unless HOA documents specifically prohibit it. And there are some jurisdictions that are incentivizing installation. For instance, Fairfax County in Virginia waived permit fees for EV charging stations through April 2024. They also provided helpful resources, such as guides for HOAs, installing chargers, a checklist to help with avoiding potential conflicts during the installation process, and a document covering the applicable zoning requirements. One thing to keep in mind when choosing a location for an EV charger is if that location happens to be in a floodplain that's been identified by FEMA. If the project is in a floodplain, then you'll want to confirm with the manufacturer that that EV charging equipment can safely be inundated with floodwater up to the height of the base flood elevation. Alternatively, if it's not able to be, you would need to elevate the charging equipment to be over that base flood elevation. As electric vehicles become more ubiquitous in the United States, the country will need to develop more infrastructure to support them. People will need to charge their cars at home, work, and out in public. When you do make the commitment to install EV charging stations, where do you put them? Every foot of cable from the facility is expensive. There's also federal accessibility requirements, the ADA, that could conflict with cost and location. So these are considerations that you'll want to work through before you put a concrete plan in place to install EVCs. Virginia should be getting $100 million over the next 5 years as part of the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Federal Program. To conduct this work, the Virginia Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Plan was put together in the summer of 2022 and approved by the Federal Highway Administration in September of 2022. Now Virginia is tasked with beginning to implement the plan with the goal of installing sufficient infrastructure along the identified alternative fuel corridors. What this means is that charging stations need to be installed at least every 50 miles along those routes, have at least 4 DC fast chargers at each station, and each port must support at least 150 kilowatts simultaneously. As part of the plan, an assessment of existing infrastructure was conducted, including gaps where more infrastructure is needed to meet the requirements that were just mentioned. It was identified that 26 charging stations are needed.